to give a little bit of background, this was my first school year as a full-time teacher in Greene County schools. This was also my first time teaching at their middle school, and it's my first time teaching 8th grade math. Previously, I've taught 6th grade math and 5th grade. So I had nothing to lose, nothing at all. I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And because of that, I decided to go headfirst into figuring out what's going on in this school. So I decided, or I was asked and requested to hold our math departmental meetings and to facilitate them. So prior to our first meeting, I did my research. I looked at the historical data. I wanted to know what's going on in this school. Why are these things going on? And the first thing that I found was that there is a dramatic dip in our math data from 5th to 6th grade, which is consistent with what's going on in North Carolina. And then there's also a dip from 7th to 8th grade. So I wanted to know why. What's going on? Where should we start? Where should our instructional focus be? And so our instructional focus ultimately is going to be on our expressions and equations, because students have a hard time, understanding that that variable is now a number, that letter is a number. And then our geometry is also where they struggle, as it's an abstract concept that it's just really hard to understand, like this is volume on a flat figure, on a 2D figure. So I started there. That's where I started. I wanted to make sure I knew what was going on in this school. I knew what was going on with our students. You can't go wrong with presenting the facts. In our second meeting, I researched our resources. I looked at, okay, we have iReady, we have big ideas. How do I use these resources? So in that second meeting, that's all we did. All we did was practice. We practiced logging our students into iReady. We practiced using, what resources can we use from our big ideas. In our third meeting, two of our teachers went to the North Carolina Math Conference in Winston-Salem, and I encouraged them and pushed them to come back to our meeting and to discuss their findings, to talk about the strategies that they've gained, to talk about the resources that they've gained, and then it gave other teachers the opportunity to take those resources with them. This right here, this project was 100% necessary to determine the academic needs and the focus, so we know where we can start to ensure that we have an increase in engagement and then an increase in that student achievement. So taking a step back, the previous school year, I worked for Lenore County Public Schools as a 6th grade math teacher. The associate superintendent came to my mother and I and asked us to present a professional development on communicating effectively with parents concerning their students. Why? Because my mother and I, we are a mother-daughter duo. we are a duo, and we effectively communicate with each other. And because of our effective communication skills, we're able to effectively communicate with our parents, and we're able to effectively communicate with our students. So because we already had that model, we were used as that model. So our attendees came, we made sure that throughout the professional development, we reminded them that these parents are sending us the absolute best that they have. So we must keep that in mind as we're communicating. And the professional development, which was, I had the most fun. And it was an each one teach one type of session. So after we presented our findings and our strategies, teachers were encouraged to take our PowerPoint, to take our resources, and to take that back to their school and present their findings, to present these things to their staff, so that, of course, if everybody is effectively communicating, everyone involved benefits. This was important for me because I had never presented in a professional development. So it was a great opportunity for me to foster those skills. Uh-oh.
Yeah, we're just seeing black here.
Yeah.
I think it may have popped you out of your PowerPoint.
There we go. Okay, I'm back.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. So now going back to Greene County Schools, where I currently am, again, as I stated, I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And so I asked what was a leadership opportunity that I could embark on, and facilitating student school clubs was it. They said, here, this is yours, take it. It kind of felt like no one else wanted it, and it was okay. I was fine with that. And I was fine with that because for me, it was a new opportunity. I hadn't been at a school that had school clubs. I had no clue what I was getting myself into, but that was okay. It was a perfect opportunity for me to continue to professionally grow. So with the school clubs, all students are in clubs, all faculty members are responsible for a club, and they are in these clubs for an hour on our early out days. And so for our community engagement and parental piece, so our clubs such as FFA, our Future Farmers of America, we're in a rural community. So a lot of our parents are farmers, a lot of our parents own farms, work on farms, have farming equipment, whatever the case may be, or sell the supplies. And so these parents were asked to come in, these community leaders were asked to come in to present during specific sessions that they were having to let these students know that, yes, this is what I do. I'm a part of what you're interested in. And just like I make a positive impact on my community, so can you. You can also be that productive member of the community. Not only did we have FFA, we had STEP team, where we had some of our sororities and fraternities come in and model what it is to STEP. We have basketball. We had a multitude of clubs that students enjoyed being a part of. Another great thing about that was just the fact that it was outside of our realm of our math, science, social studies, and ELA. It was bigger than that. It allowed our students to reach out into our community and see that there are other things, there are other possibilities, there are other things that they're able to be interested in. And those are some pictures from that. This is the slideshow, well, part of the slideshow. So we have book clubs, math fair, STEM, again, our STEP team, and outdoor sports. It was great. I absolutely love this. By far, this was probably my favorite project. All right, so the next one, school safety and culture. During our opening meeting, I noticed that our crisis management plan was out of date. It was out of date. So I requested and asked if I could make the changes to this document. And they said, absolutely, go for it. So I did. The first thing that I noticed was that our phone tree was out of date. New teachers hadn't been added. Old teachers had not been removed, as well as teachers that had made changes throughout the school those changes weren't not reflected. I had questions about our evacuation plan, and I just wanted to make sure that nothing was left open to interpretation in this document. It's completely necessary that when things are happening in our school, we need to make sure that we're 100% on top of it. Again, leaving no room for questions. We want to make sure that our students and staff and their families and visitors will remain safe while they're on campus and on our property. And that's it for that one. So after I did these changes, I gave my recommended changes to the administrative team, and I do believe that they're working to make sure that these changes are documented to push out for the next school year. Lastly, for school improvement, as I mentioned previously, iReady is one of the resources that we have in our district. This is funded for all schools, and it's mandated. It's mandated by our county, of course, because they're paying for it, for us to use. And the iReady is used to fill in those academic gaps, and it tailors, to our students' specific needs. Looking at the data, I decided to look at our data because I wanted to know, is iReady effective to our students, and is it what we need? Are we using this properly? Are we getting our money's worth? Are we getting our money's worth out of a resource that we're paying for the entire county? So I decided to, again, look at our math data as, you know, I've facilitated the math PDs and the math departmental meetings. So I know that iReady is something that we use as our resource. So I stuck with the math, and I found that a lot of our students are either one, in the yellow, they're either one grade level or below behind, and in the red, they're either 2 grade levels or more behind. So the majority of our students are not catching up, they're not filling those academic needs. After researching a little bit more, I found that our teachers are not using this with fidelity. And that's the problem. It's not the students, it's the teachers. We have to make sure that as teachers, we're doing what we're supposed to do to make sure our students are on point. So as this project was being implemented right before our virus outbreak, my findings are inconclusive. Well, I'm not all the way finished with this project, but my plan of action going forward is to get our teachers together to have a conversation, to talk about why are we not using this with fidelity, what are the problems, what are the issues, and to create suggestions of what we can do going forward with using iReady, because it doesn't seem like we're not gonna, they're paying for it. So we're not gonna get rid of it. It's not going anywhere. So we have to figure out how can we tailor what we're doing to make sure that we're using it. And then my plan is to take these suggestions back to the school improvement team and figure out what we can do going forward. Organizational management, each of the projects covered encompasses the standard. So organizing and facilitating each project, I organized every project from beginning to end. I carried them out, and then analyzing the data and creating processes. So in the beginning, where I looked at the data from the historical data, I looked at what was going on, I looked at the iReady data, I figured out what was going on, and then I made a conclusion, draw conclusions, took them back to the team and said, look, this is what's going on, this is an option of what we can do going forward, and making sure that, you know, we stick to what it is that we said we're gonna do. In doing all of these, I made sure that I was up to date and abreast of the best research practices as they are constantly changing, making sure that I'm giving the right feedback, making sure that I'm giving the staff exactly what they need. And then, of course, working closely with my students, I'm always talking to them, always interviewing them, always making sure that the teachers are doing, you know, what they're supposed to do to make sure that they're getting what they need, reaching out to families concerning our school clubs, as well as with the iReady, making sure that our students are using it. Of course, especially now as they're at home, making sure I'm reaching out to families, making sure that students are still using them, and then constantly talking to staff about what can we do? What are some things that you feel like need to be improved upon? What can I do to help? And then, of course, communicating my findings about each project, talking to admin, saying, hey, this is what's going on, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm finding, and creating those solutions with them as a team. My final reflections, my leadership philosophy encompasses being who I needed, making sure that I'm who I needed as not just a teacher, not just as an administrator, but as a person. Who do I need? Am I being motivating? Am I being empowering? Because I know if I needed it in all 3 roles, someone else around me needs it too. Giving that continuous feedback and being reflective, not just for my staff, but for myself, because if I'm not reflecting on my practices and what I'm doing, then there's absolutely no way that I can mandate someone else to do the same thing. And then lastly, community. It's about making sure that the community, my school community, is on top of their game, that we're close, that we're tight-knit, so that when we go out into the community, we're just as tight-knit. We can bring in that community and have them be a part of our tight-knit community. It's about, bringing in our stakeholders and making sure that they are a part of this, because they are. Lastly, I'll leave you with this quote: I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples, by Mother Teresa. I can't do it by myself. I need my staff, I need my coworkers, I need my colleagues, I need my students, I need my family. And having all of these people, I have to make sure that I make the best decisions, so that if I'm effectively communicating, everyone else is effectively communicating. If I'm staying on top of my game and being positive, then I know that the people around me are going to have that positive attitude as well. And these are my references.
All righty. Wonderful job, Keiara. Great job. We certainly enjoyed that. We're going to move into the Q&A portion where the faculty will be asking questions. And I don't see any hands raised. So guys, oh, there you go. Dr. Luton. You need to unmute yourself.
There we go. Now?
Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Keiara. I think your school is and your district are very lucky to have you. You have such a positive attitude, and you mentioned it even in the beginning when you talked about your positive impact on student learning project. You saw it from the beginning, even though you were brand new to everything, as an opportunity to just jump right in, and I thought that was very admirable. So great job, and like I said before, I think they're lucky to have you. And I wanted to ask you, you said you had everything, nothing to lose and everything to gain. I love that. And really all the way through your presentation, that positive attitude came through. I wanted to know how you felt ECSU was able to support you in those early endeavors. I mean, you know, that was a lot to bite off. So how do they support you, and how can you in turn now support others moving forward?
It looks like you're on mute, Keiara. I don't know what happened. There we go. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great question. I do believe in the beginning it was a lot. It was a lot on our plate, but I do believe that starting with the cohort was everything. It was everything that we all needed to make sure that we stayed strong. And I credit ECSU for that, because, you know, in those early classes, we were together all the time. We communicated all the time. We were able to work together in projects, so that allowed for us to be extremely close and to be able to lean on each other as we went through those early classes. Going forward, to be a support to other students, I definitely make sure or hope that I'm able to reach back. I mean, lifting as we climb was definitely one of my mottos, making sure that I can help in any way that I can, mentor in any fashion.
Dr. Wages, and I think Dr. Johnson has taken herself off mute, and she will have a question after Dr. Wages.
Hi, Keiara. I put my picture on there now so I can see you. I did want to really commend you on the fact that you admitted you were overwhelmed. To me, in my experience, any good leader is a leader who is willing to say, hey, I'm overwhelmed, or I don't know the answer, but I will find the answer for you. And so to me, that really demonstrates your professionalism and your leadership ability. The question I have for you is, I wanted to know how you found out that teachers were not using iReady with fidelity. What was the process that you used for that?
So going into iReady, you can see how long students are actively engaged, so time-wise. And then during that time, I also, I mean, it wasn't long that I was back at school, but I was able to circulate around the school to see what was going on during our advisory time, which is where students were supposed to be using it. So the time wasn't matching. You know, students acting in class when I peeked in were not matching. The data was not lining up.
Good, because I know that is a process, since I have done that in the past, and I just wanted you to really elaborate on the fact that there was a lot of research that you had to do. It didn't just pop up that you knew they weren't doing it with fidelity, that you actually had gone in and done some work to that. So thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes, I just had a follow-up question to the iReady. But first, I wanted to commend Keiara on the standard number 3, community involvement and engagement. It takes a ton of work to pull all of those groups together. So I wanted to commend you on that. That sounds fantastic. In terms of the iReady, if you could now fast forward a bit and see yourself in the role of the school leader. So you're the instructional leader for the school. How would you change the onboarding process for the iReady? So the initial supports for teachers so that you don't come up against the lack of implementation with fidelity? What would you change
Absolutely.
if it were for school?
What I would change, I would, number one, be extremely excited about already. If I'm not excited about it, staff members are not going to be excited about it. They're not going to want to do it. So I need to go in with a positive attitude, regardless of my personal feelings about already. I have to be excited. I would definitely want to have a type of professional development in the beginning, making sure that all teachers know this is what's going on already. Yes, I can see that it's not happening in your classroom. Yes, I can see that your students are not participating. Yes, and also show them the resources. Like, you're able to assign standards to your students. You're able to look exactly, you're able to see exactly where your students are sitting and what you can do. It hands it to you. So making sure that my staff knows that this is a great resource that you can use, helping them to remain optimistic throughout, the use of it, and and show them the data, show them other schools' data of, okay, so they started out here and this is where they are because they use this program with fidelity.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. I just have one other follow-up, if I may, Dr.
Sure,
Bird.
absolutely.
Standard number 2, distributive leadership. You mentioned that you and your mom participated in the PD on how to effectively communicate with parents concerning their students. Talk about the follow-up to that. I know you mentioned implementation with fidelity. Was there any follow-up with that? Did teachers find it helpful? Did you see a change in practice across the school or across the district?
So following the professional development, we had a survey that talked about what, and that was a slip on my part because I probably should have included it. That would have been great data to include, but a documentation and questions asking them how they felt like the professional development went, as well as how they were planning to utilize not only just the PowerPoint or our research and our findings, but also how they felt like it was effective for them and how they felt about it. As I left after that next semester, I was no longer there. I was not able to keep up with the data or the follow-up of how well or not the professional development was.
Anything else, Dr. Johnson? Looks like you're muted.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Keiara.
Thank you. We have Dr. Williams. She's joined us. Dr. Williams, can you unmute and just give a quick introduction to Keiara? And if you have a question, please feel free to do so. Dr. Williams. All right, she may have stepped away. Keiara, while she is coming back on, I have one question. If you can talk about the top 2 to 3 leadership skills that you feel like you have developed from ECSU that you will use now in your future leadership practice. What are those top 2, 3 skills?
The first skill, definitely effective communication. Making sure that everyone that I'm working with knows what is expected, what is necessary, what is needed. Making sure that we're all on the same page and knowing our goal, our mission, our values, and that we're staying true to them. So definitely effectively communicating, as well as patience. I've definitely learned that it's necessary to be patient. The results are not going to come overnight. It's not going to happen in the blink of an eye. And probably to be very leery of things that do come at a blink of an eye, but just being patient, allowing things to run their course, and after they run their course, still continue to search and research and make sure that whatever you're presenting and whatever you're bringing to the table is worth it.
Wonderful. And I just got a text from Dr. Williams. She's having technical issues, so she cannot unmute, nor can she show her video. But she's here, and she's giving you kudos and thumbs up. I believe she was going to text me a question, but it has not come through yet. Give me 1 minute. Let me give her a minute. I don't think it's going to work. Okay. All righty, Keiara. Well, I think that's it for us. You can breathe now. I think you can now go back and play with your baby. Guys, she just had a baby, so she has been doing all of this in the midst of being a new mommy and doing an outstanding job. And I just want to piggyback on what Dr. Johnson said about that community involvement project. I was working with you on that project, and believe me, I remember telling you from the beginning, this is a big project. I certainly want to support you in doing this project, but this is a big project. And you did an outstanding job on that project, pulling your community resources in. And she didn't do it justice here, guys. She had guest speakers coming in. Her students were super excited. She was connecting with her community in such a positive way. And her leadership team was just so appreciative. So you did a great job. Thank you for being so positive, as you always are. We love that. And I think this is it for us now. You can go play with the baby.
Good job, Keiara.
Great job. Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
All righty. Well, guys, go ahead, Keiara. You can log off for us. And I'm going to stop recording.